you can absolutely paint this a number of different ways. So when we're talking about edges, these edges here are blurred, and then we call this a crunchy edge. I call it a crunchy edge. This is a softened edge where I'm taking my brush and going into here. This is a hard edge. Remember, anytime you have a hard edge, that's where the viewer is going to look. So that's why this directional and hard edge here is so important, looking into this little area. And then these areas, even though you would think that the black and white floor should be hard edge, you want it to be fairly soft because we don't really want to focus on this area. We just want this as a supporting character for the rest of the painting. Okay, so I've got something here, but this is a little tutorial. This is an example of one of the tutorials that I do at the watermill, and I also do with you when we're on location and talk to you about different aspects of
Right.
watercolor. But this is a really a lot of fun. I'm working on a short watercolor book, but I called this the beauty of soft and hard edges. So in this particular piece, I've got this was a little persimmon that I actually painted. And I thought one of the things that I liked about it is it had this, it's getting a little bit older now, but it's got this wonderful texture to the orange quality of it, and it's got this wonderful little leafy quality at the top. So in interpreting that kind of piece, and if
Yeah.
you want something to look like it goes away, you want to blur the edges on this side. You want to sharpen the edges on this side, and you want to darken areas at the top, dark against light, so you get the idea of crispness. So the other thing that you want to note here is as the light is close to an object, it's going to have a hard shadow edge. And as the light gets a little further away from an object, it gets a softer edge. So that's why in our painting we did today, we were talking about the idea of hard and soft edges to create the illusion of depth. So there are three different edges that I want you to think about. This is, we'll actually go with this one first. The smooth edge is really obvious. It is usually dark against light, and it is crisp, and it is usually done with one brush stroke. Now, that would be true if I were doing watercolor or oil or gouache. I'm not changing the edge of that brush. I want that to look very, very clean. What you call a smooth edge could be called a clean edge. It's very obvious, and it gets your attention right away. So here's the trick. If you have painting and all your edges are clean, that means that the viewer will have a hard time figuring out where they're going to look. So they look at this clean edge, they look at that clean edge, they look at the next one. Where do you have a rest for the eye? Okay, so smooth edge, very obvious. The second one is soft edges. So this is seen first, this is seen last. So soft edges are seen the very last in a painting. So a soft edge can be done by blurring the edge with water. It can be also done by painting an edge next to another edge that is still wet. It can be also done by taking a brush and going in and moving that edge at the end and softening it with a thirsty brush. So that's one way of doing it. And the soft edge here is also the illusion of space and just kind of it's pushing it back. So hard edge is seen first, soft edge is seen last. Okay, third kind of edge are rough edges, and they get a lot of attention more than a smooth one. And they actually, if you look at the history of watercolor painting, this type of edge was very popular, particularly in the paintings of the 1940s through 1960s, where painters were coming out of the oil painting era and then suddenly painting with watercolor, and no one really gave them a lot of instruction in watercolor. They were making it up as they went along. They were oil painters who suddenly got watercolors, and their teacher said, just paint with watercolor. It's the same thing. So they were using the paint thickly, and they were using it in a rough manner, and the edge then is a rough edge is created with a brush. So soft edge is created with water, smooth edge is created with control of the brush. Rough edge is created with a brush. And that gets much more attention here too, because you've got a variegated edge and then you've got a lot of roughness here where the application method is very uneven. So those are the three kinds that you can do. And if you look in here, we've got the sharp edge, the soft edge, and I've got a little bit of rough color combinations here, but not too much. I'm going to show you one little trick here, and this is something that you can practice with edges, even though you're maybe working with three little items here. This is a little exercise that actually comes out of a book from the 1950s, and it was a California artist who talked about this particular kind of technique. And it's just brush strokes to show you how a hard edge and then a soft edge can be combined in the same thing. So we're going to do one brush stroke first. I'll show you. Then we go with a second brush stroke here, and we're going to be creating a little object as you would down on here. So let's move this away. We're going to just make up some color right here. We don't have to have any color in particular. It can be, let's make something up a little bit more violet-y. Move this over to the side for a little bit of variation. Okay. Bluish violet. Okay. So here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing one brush stroke here, one brush stroke out here, and then this is going to be the shadow plane under here. Now, I've got all hard edges here. Rinse your brush, tamp your brush, and soften that interior edge. Put a little stem on this. It can be a little piece of fruit. And we're going to go in with something a little bit darker. And then we're going to pull out. From here, we can actually do a different color if we want. Do a little bit of burnt sienna in the background. Or you can use all one color. But you can see really quickly how you can get something to look like it's rounded in space. And now we're taking a little bit of dark color, Prussian blue or burnt sienna, and we're going to put it right underneath this object. Right here. And there's my object. I'll do it one more time. Pretty easy. I can do it with a different color. So we'll do mix a little bit of cerulean blue in with this. So once again, we'll try it one more time. So you go one stroke this direction, one stroke this direction. Little top on here. You're going to wet this interior area. Look at how that fades out in there. We want this to be a blur. We want to give that a little bit of definition. And that's your actually two-stroke fast exercise in softening edges. And if you want to play with this edge on the side, get your brush, tamp your brush, rinse your brush, tamp your brush, and kind of just pull that out on the side. Get some really nice edges. This is called really playing with edges. You can have a lot of fun with. This is something that's kind of fun. You can do a whole page of these, and that really, it'll help you know how much water you want to use when you're doing your edges. This will really help you a lot because this one will create, you'll see that this one creates that sharp. That's the edge that we're looking at first. And then this one is after. The other thing that you can do is if you have an exercise like this, and you want to do a whole painting, let's say in a muted gray or colors, as we did in my demo here with the darks, we can go
Yes.
back in when this is dry and you can put a glaze. If you are a person who likes to do glazes, we can do a glaze on top of the finished piece. So for example, on this piece here, the add the stem detail, we can go back in now and glaze right over that because
Yes.
this is already dried. Remember, glaze goes on a very dried surface. So we can do a full scale value painting and then go back in with color on this. We can put in a little bits of color here. We can actually have some fun with mingling and merging of the colors.